I walked away with a collapsing old house that no one else wanted. My father's words were still echoing in my head. She gave you exactly what you could handle. 4 months later, my phone rang at 10 o'clock at night. It was the contractor overseeing the renovation. He spoke 7 words that changed everything. "Ma'am, we found something inside the wall." When I arrived at the house, police lights were already flashing across the driveway. Officers stood near the entrance while workers waited on the porch, and in the living room, pulled from behind a hidden false wall, was a steel box. My initials were engraved on the lid. What was inside that box didn't just prove my family wrong. It proved they were criminals. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But only if stories like this truly resonate with you. And feel free to drop your location. I always love seeing where people are listening from. My name is Rowena Rose. I'm 28 years old. And this is the story of the worst betrayal my family ever committed against me, and how my late grandmother made sure they would eventually answer for it. To explain how everything unfolded, I need to take you back to last September. Sunday dinner. I was sitting at the far end of the table, closest to the kitchen, close enough to collect the plates afterward. Every Sunday at 6 o'clock sharp, the Rose family gathers for dinner. It's not exactly an invitation. It's more like a summons. Our house sits in Westchester County, New York. A large colonial with white columns, black shutters, and a perfectly trimmed lawn. From the outside, it looks like something from a magazine, a perfect family portrait. But inside, the atmosphere always feels more like a courtroom, one where the verdict has already been decided before anyone speaks. My father, Victor Rose, sits at the head of the table. My mother, Monica Rose, takes the seat to his right. My older sister, Vanessa, sits to his left, and I sit at the far end, near the kitchen. Tonight, my mother looks especially pleased with herself. Vanessa has just been promoted, senior account director at her marketing firm. She places her wine glass on the table as if she's setting down a trophy. My father nods slowly, the proud expression of a man convinced he built all of this himself. "That's the Boston office?" he asks. "Regional lead," Vanessa replies. She doesn't bother smiling. She doesn't have to. The entire room is already smiling for her. I wait for a small pause in the conversation. "This week I helped a family find permanent housing," I say carefully. "A single mom and her 2 kids. They'd been living in a shelter for—" "That's nice, sweetie," my mother interrupts without even glancing at me. Then she turns back to Vanessa. "Tell your father about the Boston account." And just like that, the conversation moves on. I lower my eyes and cut my chicken in silence. After dinner, I'm the one standing at the sink washing dishes while everyone else disappears. Vanessa leaves without saying goodbye. My parents retreat to the living room. No one asks me to stay. On the drive home, my phone buzzes with a voicemail. It's my grandmother, Eleanor Whitaker. Her voice is warm, calm, unhurried. "Rowena, I made your lemon cake today. Come get it before your mother does." She calls every week. She remembers my favorite recipe. She asks about my work at the nonprofit. She listens when I talk about my clients or my bad days. Once, she told me something I didn't understand at the time. We were sitting on the porch of her old house in Cold Spring, the place where she grew up. It had been empty for years. No one in the family visited it anymore. She was staring at the walls like they were holding a secret conversation. Then she said quietly, "There are things hidden in this house, Rowena. When the time comes, you'll understand." Back then, I thought she was talking about memories. She said that 3 months before she died. Now I know she meant something very different. The call came on a Tuesday morning at 2:07 a.m. A nurse from White Plains Hospital spoke in the careful, practiced tone hospitals use for terrible news. "Ms. Rose, I'm calling about your grandmother, Eleanor Whitaker. She passed away in her sleep about an hour ago. I'm very sorry." I don't remember hanging up. What I remember is my shoes. I put them on the wrong feet and didn't even notice until I was already halfway down the highway. 40 minutes later, I pulled into the hospital parking lot. 2 cars were already there. My father's black Audi and a silver sedan I didn't recognize. Inside the hospital, I expected to find my family beside my grandmother's bed. Instead, I found them standing in the hallway. My father, my mother, and a man in a gray suit I had never seen before. They were gathered in a tight circle near the vending machines. The man was holding a leather folder. My father was nodding. Vanessa leaned against the wall a few feet away, scrolling through her phone. Her eyes were completely dry. No one even notices as I walk past them. I step into the room by myself. My grandmother, Eleanor Whitaker, lies quietly in the hospital bed, her hands folded neatly across her chest. The monitor beside her has already been turned off. The room is silent, but not the hollow kind of silence. It feels almost held, as if she had just finished speaking and was waiting for someone to sit down and listen. On her wrist, she is still wearing the silver bracelet, thin, tarnished, simple. She wore that bracelet every single day for more than 40 years. I reach down and gently close my hand around it. For a moment, I just stand there, holding it. When I step back into the hallway, my father, Victor Rose, is already buttoning his coat. "We need to discuss the estate," he says briskly. "Soon." No hand on my shoulder. No, "Are you okay?" My mother, Monica Rose, adjusts her scarf with quiet impatience. "Your grandmother was very old, Rowena. It was her time," she says. "Let's focus on what actually matters now." My eyes drift to the man in the gray suit standing beside them. He avoids looking at me. I turn to the nurse. "Can I keep the bracelet?" I ask softly. She nods. My mother glances down at it. "It's just costume jewelry," Monica says dismissively. "Take it if you want." I slip the bracelet into my coat pocket and keep my hand pressed over it the entire drive home. It still feels warm, like she had just taken it off. Later, I would learn the man in the gray suit was a lawyer named Samuel Pierce, a man my grandmother had never hired. A man who somehow appeared at the hospital at 3 a.m, before most of the family had even been notified. But I didn't know any of that yet. Not that night. That night, I just drove home with the bracelet in my pocket. The funeral takes place at St. Matthew's Church in White Plains. More than 80 people attend. My grandmother was the kind of woman who remembered your children's names and your dog's birthday. People loved her without effort. My father delivers the eulogy. He stands at the front of the church in a navy suit, his voice calm and controlled. "My mother-in-law was the foundation of this family," he says. "She believed in loyalty. She believed in legacy." He pauses, letting the words hang in the air. "And we will honor her by remaining united." I sit in the second row and silently count the lies. In the last 2 years of her life, Victor visited my grandmother exactly twice. Both visits lasted less than an hour. After the service, people gather outside in the church courtyard. I stand near the edge of the crowd, holding a cup of coffee I never drink. People shake my hand politely, but most of them drift quickly toward my mother, who stands near the entrance accepting condolences like a diplomat at a formal event. Then someone gently touches my elbow. I turn. Beatrice Langford, 80 years old, my grandmother's closest friend for more than 5 decades. She pulls me aside near the hedges and lowers her voice. Your grandmother talked about you constantly, Rowena. Every week. Her eyes are red from crying, but they are sharp. She was worried, Beatrice says quietly. She told me she had taken precautions. Precautions for what? I ask. Beatrice opens her mouth, then closes it again. My mother is walking toward us with a wide, practiced smile. Beatrice, thank you so much for coming, Monica says warmly. She wraps Beatrice in a hug that lasts exactly long enough for someone to take a photo. We're all grieving together. Beatrice steps back. Before she walks away, she gives me one last look. The kind of look that says, not here, not now, but soon. That evening, Vanessa posts a photo from the funeral on Instagram. She's standing beside the casket flowers, her head tilted slightly, eyes soft and composed. The caption reads, "Rest in peace, Grandma. We were blessed to be your family." She doesn't tag me. She never has. Later that night, I sit alone in my apartment, staring at the silver bracelet on my nightstand. Precautions. What kind of precautions does someone make when they're afraid of their own family? 3 weeks later, we are summoned to the office of Samuel Pierce, attorney at law. It's a name I had never heard until the night my grandmother died. And now he apparently holds the authority over everything she left behind. His office in White Plains feels cold the moment we enter. Beige walls, a conference table far too long for 5 people. My father sits at one end, legs crossed, hands clasped confidently. My mother sits beside him, perfectly upright. Vanessa sits across from me, scrolling through her phone. Pierce opens a leather folder and begins reading without looking up. To Victor Rose and Monica Rose, management of the Whitaker Family Trust, valued at approximately $2.4 million, including control over all liquid assets and investment accounts. My father gives a satisfied nod. Pierce continues. To Vanessa Rose, the primary residence in Scarsdale, along with the associated investment portfolio. Vanessa barely glances up. Then Pierce reads the final line. To Rowena Rose, the property located at 14 Birch Hollow Road, Cold Spring, New York. I wait. There must be more. There isn't. Birch Hollow Road is my grandmother's childhood home, a house that has been abandoned for over a decade. The roof leaks, the walls are cracking. 2 years ago, the county condemned the electrical system. Everyone at that table knows exactly what kind of house it is. My father slowly turns toward me. His face is carefully neutral, the expression of a man who rehearsed this moment long ago. Your grandmother understood your limitations, Rowena, he says calmly. She gave you what you could manage. My mother folds her hands. At least you have a roof, she adds. Not everyone gets that. Vanessa never even looks up from her phone. I stare at Samuel Pierce. My grandmother told me she would take care of me, I say quietly. She said it to my face. This isn't what she wanted. My father leans forward slightly. Are you calling your dead grandmother a liar? The room goes completely still. Pierce closes the folder. I stand up. I take my coat, and I walk out without looking at any of them. In the parking garage, I sit in my car for 11 minutes before I can even start the engine. My hands won't stop shaking. I press my hands firmly against the steering wheel until the trembling finally fades. That's when something catches my attention. The address. 14 Birch Hollow Road, Cold Spring. The same house, the same porch, the same walls my grandmother once stared at when she told me, "There are things hidden in this house, Rowena. When the time comes, you'll understand." I turn the key in the ignition and start driving. The house at 14 Birch Hollow Road looks like it fought a long battle with time and lost. I pull onto the gravel shoulder and sit in the car for a full minute just staring at it. The old Victorian frame still stands, but barely. The wraparound porch sags on one side. 3 of the front windows are cracked. The gutters hang crooked like loose teeth. Weeds have swallowed the yard, reaching almost to my waist. Across the street, a neighbor briefly pulls back a curtain to watch me. A moment later, the curtain falls closed again. I walk up the steps and push the front door. It groans loudly but opens. Inside, there is nothing but dust, mildew, and silence. Some of the floorboards feel soft under my feet, weakened by years of rain leaking through the roof. Half the spindles on the staircase railing are missing. Somewhere above me, a bird has built a nest in the ceiling. Then I notice something in the kitchen. On the wall, behind a layer of grime, hangs a framed photograph. It's small and faded. In the picture, a young woman stands in front of this very house, holding a baby in her arms. The yard behind her is clean. The porch is freshly painted white. She's smiling. I turn the frame over. Written on the back in ink that has faded with time are a few simple words. For my Rowena. The house remembers. My grandmother wrote that. I place the photo carefully on the counter. Then I pull out my phone and call the contractor a coworker from my nonprofit recommended. Patrick O'Connor answers on the 3rd ring. He comes to the house that same afternoon. Patrick walks slowly through each room without speaking. He presses his boot against the floors, tests the walls with his knuckles, runs a hand along the peeling plaster. When he finishes, he stands on the porch and removes his cap. 60 to 70,000 minimum, he says. You got that kind of money? I don't. I have $27,500 in savings and a credit line I've never touched. It's not enough, but it's everything I have. I'll make it work, I say. Patrick studies my face for a moment. Then he nods once. I'll cut costs where I can, he says. You seem good for it. His crew begins work the following Monday. They rip out old wallpaper, pull up warped floorboards, and start tearing down damaged sections of wall. On the 2nd day, Patrick calls me over to the living room. He's shining a flashlight across the wooden framing of the far wall. This wall's strange, he says. Double-layered. I look closer. 2 sets of boards with a narrow gap between them. Dark, hollow, intentional. Someone built a false wall here, Patrick says. I stare into the empty space between the layers. Keep going, I tell him. Patrick glances at me, then back at the wall. Whoever built this probably didn't want it opened, he says. But it's your house. He lifts a sledgehammer. The next evening, my father calls. I let the phone ring twice before answering. Rowena, he says, his tone calm and rehearsed. That house is a money pit. You know that. I'll buy it from you. How much? 15,000 cash. At least you'll walk away with something. $15,000 for the house my grandmother grew up in. The house she told me to remember. No, I say. Silence. Then his voice turns colder. You're making a mistake. I hang up. The next morning, my mother sends a text. 3 long paragraphs. The first begins, You're tearing this family apart, Rowena. The second, Your grandmother would be ashamed of how you're behaving. The third, If you hand over whatever you found, we can move past this as a family. She ends the message with a crying emoji. I read it once, then I close the phone. I don't reply. 2 days later, Vanessa calls. First time she's spoken to me in months. Just take the money and move on, she says. Why are you making this so weird? You got the Scarsdale house, I reply quietly. You got the investments. Grandma wouldn't have left me a ruin. You know that. There's a pause. Because I earned it, Vanessa says. I was there for Grandma. In the last year of her life, Vanessa visited my grandmother exactly 3 times. I know that because Grandma kept a guest book by the front door. Then, something worse happens. My credit union calls me. A man claiming to be your father contacted us, the loan officer explains. He asked about the details of your personal loan. We didn't release any information, but we wanted to verify something. Did you authorize him to make that inquiry? No, I say. And suddenly I understand. They're not just waiting for me to fail. They're trying to make sure I do. That night, I sit on the porch at Birch Hollow Road. The wood creaks beneath my weight. Inside the house, Patrick's crew has stacked their tools neatly beside the exposed framing in the living room. I call Patrick. Speed it up, I tell him. Tear out every wall. All of them. He pauses. You expecting to find something? My grandmother told me the house remembers. I want to know what it remembers. Patrick exhales slowly. All right, he says. We start with the living room wall tomorrow. I hang up and stare out across the dark yard. The wind moves through the broken windows behind me, and the old house groans softly, like it's been holding its breath for years. Thursday night, 9:47 p.m. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, sorting renovation receipts when my phone lights up. Patrick O'Connor. He never calls this late. Ma'am, he says when I answer. His voice sounds different, tight and low. We found something behind that wall. What is it? I can't explain it over the phone. A pause. I already called the police. They told us not to touch anything. Another pause. And don't tell your parents about this. Oh, don't tell your sister. Just come. I don't waste time asking questions. Something in his voice tells me not to. The drive from my apartment to Cold Spring normally takes about 45 minutes. Tonight, in the rain, it takes 26. My windshield wipers beat a frantic rhythm against the glass while my hands grip the wheel. I imagine everything that might be hidden behind that wall. Money, drugs, something illegal, something buried. My thoughts spiral through every possibility. None of them feel right. Then the house appears through the rain. 2 police cruisers sit in the driveway, their red and blue lights flashing across the wet trees. Patrick stands on the porch, holding his cap in both hands. His face looks pale in the porch light. It's inside, he says. I follow him through the door. 2 officers stand in the living room. One is taking photographs, while the other watches quietly with his arms crossed. The false wall is open now. Plaster dust covers the floor, and in the hollow space between the 2 walls sits a steel box. About 2 feet long, a foot wide, covered in decades of dust. On the lid, etched into the metal in precise letters, are my initials. R. I kneel down slowly. My fingers hover just above the engraving. My grandmother hid this behind a false wall in a house she left only to me. She engraved it with my initials, and she locked it with a combination I haven't tried yet. How long has it been waiting here? The officer lowers his camera. It's your property, ma'am, he says. You can open it. We just need to document what's inside. I kneel in front of the box. The combination lock has 4 numbers. I think about every number my grandmother ever asked me to remember. Her phone number, her address, recipe measurements. Then I try the simplest one. My birthday, March 19th. The lock clicks. I lift the heavy lid. Inside, The box is divided into 3 neat compartments, each carefully lined with cloth. The kind of careful you only give to things that matter. In the first compartment, I find a thick envelope sealed with wax. I break the seal. Inside is a handwritten document, 4 pages written on ruled paper. At the top of the first page, in my grandmother's unmistakable handwriting, are the words, "Last Will and Testament of Eleanor Whitaker." The document is dated 18 months earlier than the will Samuel Pierce read in his office. 2 witness signatures appear at the bottom, a notary stamp. This is the real one, the original. The second compartment contains another envelope. Inside is a letter, 4 handwritten pages. The first line reads, "My dearest Rowena, if you are reading this, then they have done exactly what I feared they would do." My vision blurs for a moment. I press the heel of my hand against my eye and keep reading. She writes about Victor, about the family trust, about the pressure they put on her, about the fear she lived with. "They have been taking from me for 2 years," she wrote. "I could not stop them alone, so I prepared." The third compartment holds a smaller envelope. Across the front, stamped in red ink, is one word, "Private." I reach toward it. "Ma'am," one of the officers steps forward. "That one, we'd recommend letting a lawyer review it first," he says carefully. "Some of what's inside may be evidence." I slowly pull my hand back. I look at the 2 officers, then at Patrick O'Connor, who is standing in the doorway gripping the frame. "What's in there?" Patrick asks quietly. I lift the first document. My hands are shaking, but my voice isn't. "It's her real will," I say. "The one they tried to erase." One of the officers photographs the document. Then I read the terms. "In the real will, my grandmother leaves the Whitaker family trust, all of it, to me. The Scarsdale estate, every liquid asset, everything. Vanessa receives this house at Birch Hollow Road and $50,000. My father and mother each receive $1. And at the bottom of the page, in my grandmother's careful handwriting, she added one final line. So they know I did not forget them. I simply did not forgive them." The room falls completely silent. Rain taps steadily against the windows. Patrick finally exhales, like he's been holding his breath since I arrived. I fold the letter carefully and press it against my chest. The paper carries a faint scent of lavender, the same scent that filled every room my grandmother ever lived in. "They will say I didn't love you enough to give you more," she wrote. "The truth is, I loved you too much to let them take everything." I remain on that floor for a long time. The next morning, a detective from the Cold Spring Police Department calls me. His name is Detective Julian Torres. His voice is calm and professional. "Ms. Rose, we opened the 3rd envelope with a forensic technician present," he says. "I'd like you to come down to the station." By 10 o'clock, I'm sitting across from him in a small interview room. Torres walks me through what they found. Bank statements, dozens of them, each one printed, highlighted, and annotated in my grandmother's handwriting. They traced transfers from the Whitaker Family Trust into a personal account belonging to Victor Rose. The transfers happened over 23 months. The total amount? $410,000. Each transfer includes an authorization form. Each form carries my grandmother's signature. Except, Torres slides one of the pages toward me. "Your grandmother wrote notes in the margins," he explains. In small, steady pencil handwriting beside the signature are the words, "I did not sign this. This is not my handwriting." My grandmother had requested duplicate bank statements be mailed to a private P.O. box. She tracked every fraudulent transfer herself. She built the entire file. Then Torres places another document on the table. This too. It's a legal request filed 6 months before her death, a request to change the trustee and legal representative of her estate. The signature reads, Eleanor Whitaker. But even I can see it. The handwriting is wrong. We've already forwarded everything to the district attorney's office, Torres says. This goes beyond a civil dispute. I nod slowly. After leaving the station, I sit in the parking lot for several minutes before making another call. The person my coworker recommended, Claudia Bennett, an estate litigation attorney with a reputation for never losing a probate fraud case in over a decade. She answers on the first ring. For 9 straight minutes, I talk. I explain everything. She listens without interrupting once. When I finish, there's a short pause. Then she says calmly, Your grandmother didn't just leave you a house. She left you a case. Come to my office tomorrow. Bring everything. I drive home with the windows down, even though the air is cold. The world feels different somehow. Not lighter, but clearer. Before I left the station, Detective Torres mentioned something else. The third envelope also contained documents related to family history. Those materials had already been forwarded to another agency. I asked which one. The FBI, he said. I didn't ask why. I wasn't sure I was ready for that answer. In a small town, news travels quickly. Someone saw the police cars outside Birch Hollow Road. Someone told someone, and eventually, someone told my father. He calls the next evening. No greeting, no pleasantries. Whatever you think you found in that house, Victor Rose says, his voice tight with control. It means nothing. But beneath his calm tone, I hear something I've never heard from him before. Fear. I have the best lawyers in this county. You'll lose everything, my father continues coldly, including that shack. I say nothing. A moment later, the line goes dead. He hangs up. An hour later, it's my mother's turn. Monica Rose calls in tears. The performance is flawless. Her voice breaking in all the right places, breaths shaking at carefully timed moments, each pause measured like it's part of a script. Rowena, you're destroying this family, she sobs. Your grandmother would be devastated. She lets the silence stretch before continuing. Whatever you think you found, just give it back. We can fix this. We're your parents. I let her finish. Then I say calmly, Good night, Mom. And I end the call. At midnight, Vanessa sends a text. 4 words. You're delusional. Dad's lawyer will bury you. 2 days later, the official response arrives. Samuel Pierce walks into Claudia Bennett's office, carrying a settlement proposal. His hands look steady. His eyes don't. My client is offering a generous resolution, he says. Rowena keeps the Birch Hollow property. She also receives an additional $50,000. He slides the papers across the table. In exchange, she signs a non-disclosure agreement and surrenders all materials recovered from the property. Claudia doesn't even blink. My client doesn't negotiate when forged documents are involved, she says flatly. Pierce stands, smoothing his jacket. When he reaches the door, he pauses. Not to me, to Claudia. Between us, he says quietly, tell her to be careful. Victor Rose knows people in this county. Then he leaves. I turn to Claudia. What did he mean, knows people? She sets her pen down and folds her hands. Her expression doesn't change, but something behind her eyes hardens. It means, she says, we might not get a fair trial here. For a moment, I think about my grandmother sitting alone in that old house, writing notes in the margins of bank statements no one else was ever meant to see. She knew. She knew the system might not protect her, and she prepared anyway. Then we go somewhere that will be fair, I say. Claudia nods once, like she'd been waiting for me to say exactly that. She files the initial challenge with the Westchester County Probate Court. The motion is straightforward. Void the Pierce will, recognize the handwritten original, investigate the trust transfers. 2 weeks later, the ruling arrives. Motion denied. The order comes from Judge Martin Kern. His written decision states, insufficient evidence to overturn a properly filed and executed will. Claudia calls me from her car. I can hear her breathing, slowly, deliberately. The way someone breathes when they're choosing their words very carefully. The judge didn't review the forensic analysis, she says. He didn't schedule a hearing. He issued a summary denial in 48 hours. She pauses. That doesn't happen. I ask the question I already know the answer to. Why? Claudia exhales. Judge Kern and your father are both members of the Westchester Country Club, she says. I pulled the sign-in records. They've had dinner together 3 times in the last month. The world tilts. Not because I'm shocked, but because suddenly everything makes sense. They did exactly what I feared they would do, just like my grandmother wrote. The walls start closing in. The bank refuses to extend my credit. The renovation at Birch Hollow is only half finished, and the bills are piling up. Patrick O'Connor has agreed to delay payment, but I can hear the strain when he says, "Take your time." He means it. But time costs money neither of us has. That night, I sit on the floor of the Birch Hollow house. The walls are half gutted. Electrical wires hang exposed. The room smells like sawdust, and something older beneath it. I unfold my grandmother's letter again and reread the line I keep returning to. Don't let them make you small, Rowena. The truth is heavy, but it will hold you up when nothing else can. Sit there in that broken house. I wonder if she knew how hard this would be. Did she know the system itself would push back? Have you ever held something you knew was true and watched every door close in front of you? If you have, I'd love to hear how you kept going. The next morning, Claudia calls. We're going federal. The words feel enormous. Federal? I repeat. Bank fraud is a federal crime, she explains. So is elder financial abuse when interstate trusts are involved. And if the local bench is compromised, we have grounds to escalate. Her voice is steel. This isn't revenge, Rowena. It's procedure. I close my eyes. I picture my grandmother's handwriting, steady, certain, even near the end. Make the call, I say. Claudia contacts the FBI field office in Manhattan. She submits the case file in writing. Forged legal documents. Fraudulent trust transfers totaling $410,000. Evidence compiled by the victim herself before her death. And a potentially compromised local judge. 1 week later, my phone rings from a number I don't recognize. Ms. Rose, the man says. My name is Arthur Whitaker. I'm a retired special agent with the FBI. I've been asked to consult on your case because of its complexity. His voice is calm, measured, precise. The kind of voice that makes you listen without knowing why. We meet at a cafe in White Plains. He's already seated when I arrive. In his early 90s, silver hair, a brown tweed jacket over a pressed shirt. Reading glasses rest on the table beside an untouched cup of coffee. His eyes are sharp, but there's warmth in them, the kind that comes from a long life. He doesn't begin by talking about the case. Instead, he asks a simple question. Tell me about your grandmother. I wasn't expecting that. What do you want to know? Whatever you want to tell me. So I start talking. About the lemon cakes she used to bake, the weekly phone calls, the way she could make a room feel safe just by sitting in it. The porch in Cold Spring where she'd sit with her coffee, saying almost nothing, and somehow saying everything. Arthur listens quietly. He doesn't take notes. He doesn't interrupt. Not once. At one point, he looks away, and something shifts in his expression. Not professional distance. Something closer to grief. She was remarkable, he says softly. Then he explains that the FBI has opened a federal investigation. Victor and Monica will be subpoenaed. The forged documents and bank records will go through federal forensic analysis. This will go to court, he tells me, and it won't be Judge Kern's courtroom. We stand to leave. Arthur reaches out and takes my hand, holding it gently between both of his. A little longer than a stranger normally would. His palms are warm, his grip careful. He studies my face for a moment. "You have her eyes," he says. I smile, slightly confused. People usually say I look like my mother. Arthur shakes his head. "No," he says quietly. "You look like Eleanor." He lets go and walks to his car. I stay on the sidewalk watching him drive away, and something begins tugging at the back of my mind. A name. A name I feel like I should recognize. Whitaker. Arthur Whitaker. My grandmother's maiden name, before she married, was Whitaker. I stand there for a long time after his car disappears. My father doesn't wait for the subpoena. Instead, he goes on the offensive. A story appears in the Westchester Register. It looks like journalism, but it reads like a press release. The headline says, "Local family in turmoil as youngest daughter contests grandmother's estate." My father is quoted directly. "Rowena is going through a difficult period after losing her grandmother," Victor Rose tells the reporter. "We only want to support her." He sounds calm, reasonable, even compassionate. And that's what makes it dangerous. My mother escalates things online. She posts a public message on Facebook. The photo is from Christmas 2 years earlier. All 4 of us standing together in matching sweaters. My grandmother in the center. The caption reads, "Our family is being torn apart by greed and false accusations. All I ever wanted was to keep us together. Please pray for us." The post gets shared 47 times. I'm not tagged, I'm not named, but everyone knows exactly who she's talking about. At work, my supervisor pulls me aside. "Rowena, I support you," she says gently, "but a few donors have started asking questions." She hesitates. "Try to keep this private." She means well, but there is no private anymore. My father made sure of that. Then comes the real attack. Vanessa calls. Her voice is flat. "Dad says if you don't drop this by Friday, he'll petition the court to have you declared mentally unfit." At first, I think she's bluffing. She isn't. 3 days later, Claudia Bennett forwards me the filing, a petition for mental competency evaluation submitted to the Westchester Probate Court. The petitioner is not my father. It's my mother. Her written statement reads, "My daughter has a documented history of anxiety and depression. Since her grandmother's death, she has made increasingly erratic decisions. I am concerned for her safety and her ability to manage legal and financial matters." 2 years earlier, I went to therapy. For grief. For the weight of growing up invisible in my own family. My mother knew because I told her. I thought she might understand. Instead, she saved the information, not to help me, to use it. Claudia calls within the hour. "They're trying to strip your legal standing," she says. "If they succeed, you can't sue. You can't testify." "You become a ward of the court instead of the plaintiff." Her voice tightens. "We need to move fast." I stare at my mother's signature on the petition. Neat, centered. Not a hint of hesitation in the pen strokes. My own mother filed legal paperwork calling me insane to protect money she stole. That same afternoon, I called Dr. Melissa Grant. She's been my therapist on and off for 2 years, the person who helped me understand the patterns I grew up with. Control, dismissal, conditional love. I tell her everything. She listens quietly. Then she says, "I'll have the evaluation letter on your attorney's desk by morning." The letter is 3 pages long, clear, detailed, unambiguous. Rowena Rose demonstrates full cognitive and emotional competence. There is no clinical basis for a competency challenge. Her decisions appear informed, consistent, and self-directed. Claudia files the rebuttal within 48 hours. Attached are Dr. Grant's evaluation and a motion to dismiss my mother's petition. At the same time, she files a request to transfer jurisdiction to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, federal court. The FBI supports the transfer with their own brief. The local probate court doesn't fight it. Judge Martin Kern recuses himself before he can be forced out. The case moves up. That evening, I do something I've never done before. I call my father directly, not to argue, not to beg, just to inform him. "Dad," I say calmly, "I know what you and Mom did. I have the original will. I have the bank records. I have the forged signatures. The FBI is involved now." I pause, not for drama, just to breathe. "You can stop this, or it all goes public. Your choice." Silence fills the line. 10 seconds. 15. Finally, he speaks. "You're going to regret this, Rowena. You have no idea what you're starting." "I didn't start it," I reply. "Grandma did. She knew you'd come after her money. She just made sure I'd have the proof." I hang up. My hands are shaking, but not the way they used to. This isn't fear. It's the feeling of something finally shifting into place. Later that night, Claudia calls with another update. "FBI forensics finished analyzing Pierce's will," she says. "The handwriting experts reached a conclusion. 99.7% probability the signature on that document was not written by Eleanor Whitaker. Not a shadow of doubt. Not even a sliver of ambiguity. My grandmother signed the real will. Someone else signed the fake one. And now I have both." On Sunday morning, Beatrice Langford calls. She's seen the newspaper article. She's seen my mother's Facebook post, and she's finished staying silent. "Come to my house, Rowena," she says. "There are things I should have told you at the funeral." Her living room smells faintly of bergamot and old paper. She sits across from me in a wing-back chair with a quilt folded over her lap. On the side table beside her is a framed photograph. 2 young women in their 20s laughing together on a dock somewhere. One of them is my grandmother. "Your grandmother had a life before Victor," Beatrice says softly. "Before your grandfather. Before everything." She pauses. "Before Harold, there was someone else." She tells me about a young man named Michael. They met in the early 1970s, back when Eleanor was barely 20 years old. "She loved him," Beatrice says quietly, "in a way that didn't fit her family's plans." Her voice is calm, but there's something heavy beneath it. "They made her end it." She pauses before continuing. "The reasons were of that time," she says. "I won't dress them up." "What happened to him?" I ask. "He disappeared," Beatrice replies. "Moved away. The next year, Eleanor married your grandfather. She never mentioned Michael again. Not for decades." Beatrice looks at the photograph on the table beside her. Then, one day, about 15 years ago, she told me she'd found him again, said they'd reconnected. Her voice softens as she remembers. She told me, "He never stopped looking for me, Beatrice, and I never stopped wishing he hadn't." Beatrice reaches behind her chair and brings out a small wooden box. "Eleanor gave this to me about a year before she died," she says. "She told me to give it to you if something happened. Only to you." Inside the box is a black and white photograph, a young woman and a young man standing arm in arm in front of a building I don't recognize. She's wearing a white dress. He's in a dark suit. On the back, written in faded ink, M and M, 1974, Eleanor and Michael. I bring the photo closer to my face. The man in the picture is young, mid-20s, with sharp cheekbones and dark, steady eyes. I've seen those eyes before. Last week, across a cafe table in White Plains. Arthur Whitaker. "Beatrice," I say slowly. "My grandmother's maiden name was Whitaker." She nods. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't need to. I stare at the photograph until the faces blur. "You have her eyes," Arthur told me. At the time, I thought it was just a compliment. Now I realize it wasn't. It was recognition. "She planned everything, dear," Beatrice says softly from her chair. "She was the smartest woman I ever knew." She pauses. "And the most heartbroken." I drive home with the photograph lying on the passenger seat. The pieces in my mind are beginning to rearrange themselves. I can feel the outline of something forming, something I'm not quite ready to say out loud yet. That night, I sit at my kitchen table with 3 things laid out in front of me. The photograph from Beatrice, the silver bracelet from my grandmother's wrist, and the steel box from Birch Hollow. I pick up the bracelet first. I've worn it almost every day since the hospital, but I've never really looked at it carefully. The outside is simple, smooth, tarnished, unremarkable. My mother had been right about one thing. It looks like cheap costume jewelry. But when I tilt it under the lamp, I notice something. Inside the clasp, etched in letters so tiny I have to use a magnifying glass, is a sequence of numbers. 09171974. September 17th, 1974. The year everything changed for her. The same year as the photograph. M and M, 1974. A date. A code. Hidden in plain sight for 40 years. I carry the steel box over to the table. When the police processed it, they documented the 3 main compartments, but I remember something else. Under the base of the box, there was a second lock, a smaller combination panel hidden beneath the main compartment. The officers tried a few combinations, then left it alone. They assumed it was empty. They left it for me. I enter the numbers from the bracelet. 09171974. The panel releases with a quiet click. Inside the hidden compartment is a single document, folded in thirds and protected inside a plastic sleeve. I slide it out carefully. A birth certificate. Old, yellowed with age. Issued in the state of Connecticut. Name, Eleanor Ann Whitaker. Date of birth, June 3rd, 1952. Mother, Ruth Ellen Whitaker. Father, Arthur James Whitaker. I stare at the page. Arthur isn't my grandmother's former lover. Arthur is her father. I place the birth certificate on the table and reach for the final item in the compartment. A folded letter. My grandmother's handwriting again. Shorter this time, only 2 paragraphs. Rowena, Arthur Whitaker is my father. He was forced to give me up when I was 3 years old. The court took me from him under circumstances that were unjust and unforgivable. I found him again when I was 40. We kept this secret to protect you. Your father would have used it against us. When you meet him, and you will, remember that he is family, real family, the kind that doesn't take, the kind that waits. I read the letter again and again. I hold the paper up to the light as if the words might rearrange themselves into something easier to understand. Arthur Whitaker, the retired FBI agent helping investigate my case. My great-grandfather. My grandmother's father. The man who lost his daughter to the system 70 years ago and spent the rest of his life becoming someone the world could never ignore again. And my grandmother hid the truth inside a bracelet I'd been wearing every day without realizing it. I pick up my phone. I dial Arthur's number. He answers on the first ring, like he's been expecting the call. I found the hidden compartment, I say. I know who you are. The line goes quiet. Not the silence of surprise, the silence of someone who has been carrying a secret for a very long time and has just been told he can finally set it down. I was waiting for you to find it, Arthur says gently. That was Eleanor's plan. Not mine. We meet the next morning at the Birch Hollow house. He arrives before I do. When I pull up, he's standing on the porch with both hands tucked into the pockets of his tweed jacket, looking out over the yard. For a moment, I see him the way my grandmother must have seen him. Patient, steady, still there after everything. We sit together at the kitchen table, and he tells me the whole story. In the mid-1960s, when Eleanor was a teenager, her mother, Arthur's wife, Ruth, died from pneumonia. Arthur was in his early 30s at the time. He worked part-time at a hardware store. He had no savings. Ruth's family petitioned the court for custody. The court agreed. Eleanor was taken from him. At first they told me I could visit, Arthur says. Then the visits stopped. Then the address changed, and eventually, she was gone. He spent 15 years searching for her. I joined the Bureau because it gave me access to systems most people couldn't reach, he explains. I told myself it was about justice. He pauses. But it was really about her. Arthur finally found Eleanor in 1992. She was 40 years old. They met in a park in Hartford. They sat on a bench for 3 hours and barely spoke. She just held my hand, and that was enough. Arthur and my grandmother kept their reunion secret. Victor married Monica the year before I found Eleanor again, Arthur explains quietly. And Eleanor told me he was already asking questions about her finances. He shakes his head slightly. She said if Victor ever discovered me, he'd twist it. He'd claim reconnecting with the father she'd been taken from meant she was unstable. Arthur looks directly at me. His eyes are wet, but his voice remains steady. 3 years ago, Eleanor called me and said, "He's going to steal everything when I die." Arthur pauses. And I made her a promise. He exhales slowly. I told her I couldn't save my daughter from that family. But I would save my granddaughter. I don't say anything. I don't need to. I reach across the table and take his hand. Then Arthur tells me something else. Before she died, my grandmother had already sent him copies of the trust documents and bank records. A backup. Insurance in case something happened to the steel box. But he explains something important. Copies sent by someone who later dies can sometimes be challenged in court. The originals matter. The originals recovered by the rightful heir from property legally transferred to her, Arthur says. That's ironclad. That had been the plan. Not Arthur's, not Claudia's, my grandmother's. She couldn't fight them while she was alive, so she built a case after she was gone. And she trusted the one person they underestimated most to find it. Me. After Arthur leaves, I sit in that kitchen for a long time. The bracelet rests on my wrist. The birth certificate lies open on the table. Outside, the yard is silent. For the first time in 28 years, I begin to understand what family is supposed to feel like. It doesn't demand. It doesn't perform. It doesn't keep score. It waits. Wednesday afternoon, Claudia Bennett's office. 3 chairs pulled around her desk. Claudia, Arthur, and me. Behind her, a whiteboard is covered with dates, names, and red arrows connecting them. Here's where we stand, Claudia says. Federal Court, the U.S. District Court. This isn't just a will contest anymore. It's a criminal referral with a civil probate challenge attached. She taps the board. Potential charges under review. Forgery of legal documents. Bank fraud under federal statute. Elder financial abuse. Conspiracy. Arthur leans forward. The FBI has completed its forensic analysis, he says. Handwriting comparison confirms the signature on the Pierce will is forged. The authorization forms for the trust transfers, also forged. 6 separate documents carrying Eleanor's name. None written by her. Claudia nods. And there's more. We have Eleanor's video deposition. I blink. Video? Arthur opens a folder. Your grandmother recorded a sworn statement 8 months before she passed, he explains. She filmed it at Beatrice Langford's house with a notary present. She anticipated that if the box was found, they'd claim she was confused or manipulated. He slides a small USB drive across the desk. This is Eleanor Whitaker stating clearly, while of sound mind, that any will presented by Samuel Pierce is fraudulent. I press my fingers against my temples. She thought of everything. Victor already knows the hearing date, Claudia says. He's been calling everyone. His lawyers, the former judge, people from his country club. She shrugs slightly. But this is federal court now. Judge Kern has no jurisdiction. Victor's connections stop at the county line. That evening, my mother calls again. This time, she isn't crying. Her voice is cold. If you go through with this, you will have no family left, she says. Is that what you want? I look at the silver bracelet on my wrist, at the photograph of Arthur and my grandmother sitting on my kitchen counter, at the letter that begins, My dearest Rowena. I haven't had a real family in a long time, Mom, I reply quietly. I just didn't realize it. She hangs up first. That night, I return to the Birch Hollow house. The renovation is halfway finished. New floorboards line the hallway. Fresh paint brightens the kitchen, but the living room wall remains open where the steel box was discovered. I asked Patrick to leave it like that. A reminder. Tomorrow, I walk into a federal courtroom. I will carry my grandmother's handwriting in my bag, her bracelet on my wrist, and her father beside me. Tomorrow they will see me. Not the version they created, the real one. The morning of the hearing, I wake at 5. An email waits in my inbox, sent at 3:47 a.m. from my father. Not just to me, to every family address he has. Aunts, uncles, cousins, 26 recipients. The subject line reads, Family. The message says, It breaks my heart to write this. Rowena is attempting to extort our family using fabricated documents and the influence of strangers. She has struggled with mental health issues and is being manipulated by outside parties who want access to Eleanor's estate. We ask for your prayers and understanding as we fight to protect Eleanor's true wishes. By 7 o'clock, my phone shows 4 missed calls. Aunt Karen, Uncle Dale, a cousin I haven't spoken to since 2019. None of them leave messages. I know what they want to ask. I silence my phone, and I drive. The federal courthouse in Manhattan rises from the street in limestone and glass. Massive, impersonal, completely indifferent to family drama. I park 3 blocks away and walk. Outside the entrance, I see them. My father stands in a charcoal suit, posture straight, speaking to a reporter from the register. He pauses for a photograph. Controlled. Respectable. "We're confident the truth will come out today," he says calmly into the reporter's recorder. My mother stands a few feet behind him, clutching a tissue while talking to a woman from their church. "I just want my family back together," she says loudly enough for anyone passing to hear. And then there's Vanessa. She's not standing with them. She's alone near the east wall of the building, arms crossed, staring down at the pavement. No phone, no performance. When she looks up and sees me, something flickers across her face. Something I've never seen before. Not anger, not indifference. It might be fear. Or maybe the first honest emotion she's felt in months. I don't stop. I walk past all 3 of them and through the courthouse doors. Inside the lobby, Claudia Bennett is waiting with her briefcase, and beside her stands Arthur Whitaker, tweed jacket, silver hair, solid as stone. I take my place between them, Claudia Bennett on my right, Arthur Whitaker on my left. The courtroom is half full, about 15 relatives scattered across the gallery. 2 reporters sitting near the aisle, a court clerk at the front, 2 U.S. Marshals posted beside the door. Across the room, my father's legal team, 2 attorneys from a Hartford firm, arranges their files at the defense table. Victor Rose sits down beside them. He glances briefly at Arthur, doesn't recognize him, then looks away. The door behind the bench opens. "All rise." Judge Patricia Morrow enters. She's small, silver-haired, and moves with the quiet efficiency of someone who has no interest in wasting words or time. She takes her seat. "Counsel," she says calmly. "Proceed." Claudia stands. She doesn't rush. In one hand, she holds a folder. In the other, a small remote. Behind her, a projector flickers on. "Your Honor," she begins, "this case begins with a death and a lie." A timeline appears on the courtroom screen, 2 columns. On the left, the original handwritten will, dated March 14th of the previous year, notarized and witnessed by 2 individuals. On the right, the Samuel Pierce will, dated 11 months later and filed with the county probate court 3 days after Eleanor Whitaker's death. Claudia gestures toward the screen. The document presented by Mr. Pierce was not written by Eleanor Whitaker. She clicks the remote. A forensic report fills the screen. FBI certified handwriting analysis confirms with 99.7% probability that the signature on the Pierce will does not belong to the deceased. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. Someone shifts in their seat. One of my aunts leans forward. Claudia clicks again. Now the screen shows bank records. 23 months of highlighted transfers. Over $410,000, Claudia continues, moved from Eleanor Whitaker's trust into a personal account controlled by Victor Rose. Each line is marked. Each transaction linked to an authorization form. Each authorization bearing a forged signature. My father's lead attorney stands abruptly. "Objection!" The provenance of these documents has already been established through law enforcement recovery and federal forensic verification, Claudia replies without even turning around. "I have the chain of custody report here." Judge Morrow glances toward the defense table. "Overruled," Continue. Claudia opens the folder in her hands. She lifts a photocopy. Then she begins reading aloud. I am writing this while fully of sound mind. My son-in-law, Victor Rose, and my daughter, Monica Rose, have been systematically stealing from my trust for 2 years. I fear that if I confront them, I will be silenced. The courtroom goes completely still. One reporter freezes with their fingers over the keyboard. 2 relatives in the second row exchange a look I can only describe as horror. My father sits rigid, his jaw tight. My mother's hand moves to her throat. This time it isn't acting. At the back of the courtroom, Samuel Pierce shifts in his chair. Then he stands. Your Honor, sit down, Mr. Pierce, Judge Morrow says without looking up. You are a material witness. You will remain seated until called. Pierce sits again. His face has gone pale. Claudia turns back to the court. This is not a family disagreement, Your Honor. She lets the silence settle before finishing. This is a crime scene disguised as a will. Then she says, the plaintiff calls Arthur Whitaker. Arthur rises from the seat beside me. He buttons his jacket, one deliberate movement, and walks calmly to the witness stand. His footsteps are soft on the courtroom floor. He doesn't hurry. My father glances toward him, frowning slightly, then looks to his attorneys. One of them shrugs. Arthur is sworn in. He sits upright, hands folded, waiting. Claudia approaches the stand. Mr. Whitaker, she says, please state your relationship to the deceased, Eleanor Whitaker. Arthur turns his head slightly toward the gallery. His voice carries across the entire courtroom. Eleanor Whitaker was my daughter. The room doesn't explode. It collapses inward, a sharp collective inhale. Then silence. Someone covers their mouth. A chair creaks. One reporter's pen freezes mid-word. My father's head snaps toward my mother. You told me her father was dead, he whispers harshly. My mother doesn't answer. Her face has gone completely white. Her lips move, but no sound comes out. Claudia continues. Mr. Whitaker, could you explain the circumstances? Arthur speaks calmly. He describes the year everything fell apart. Ruth's death, the custody hearing, a young father judged unfit by a court that never looked twice, and a little girl carried out of his apartment while he stood in the doorway. I spent 15 years searching for her, Arthur says. I joined the FBI because I needed access to systems that had already failed me once. He pauses. We reconnected in 1992. We kept it private to protect Eleanor and to protect Rowena. Claudia inserts the USB drive. The courtroom screen flickers to life again. Now it shows a video. A familiar living room. Beatrice Langford's house. My grandmother sits in a chair facing the camera. Her hands rest calmly in her lap. Beatrice stands behind her. A notary sits to the side. My grandmother begins speaking. Her voice is thin, but steady. I, Eleanor Ann Whitaker, declare that any will produced by Samuel Pierce after September of last year is fraudulent. I am of sound mind. My son-in-law and my daughter have been stealing from me. This recording is my sworn testimony. She pauses. Then she looks directly into the camera lens. And to my Rowena, I'm sorry I couldn't say this while I was still here. But I'm saying it now. The video ends. The screen fades to black. My mother makes a sound. Not quite a cry. Not quite a word. No one moves to comfort her. My father suddenly pushes back from the defense table. This is a setup, he shouts. That man is a stranger. He has no standing. Judge Morrow's gavel strikes once. Sit down, Mr. Rose, she says sharply, or I will hold you in contempt. My father sits again. His attorney tries to steady him with a hand on his arm. He shakes it off. Arthur glances toward me from the witness stand. He doesn't smile. He doesn't need to. His eyes say the only thing that matters. I'm here. I lost my daughter once to the system, Arthur says quietly. I will not lose my granddaughter to the same family that stole my child's peace. The court reporter pauses, then continues typing. Judge Morrow writes something in her notes. Her pen moves slowly, steadily, the kind of movement that comes just before a ruling. Court will recess for 15 minutes, she announces. The gallery stirs. People stand, whisper, avoid looking at my father. I step out into the hallway. Claudia reviews her notes near the wall. Arthur speaks quietly with the FBI liaison near the water fountain. Then I hear footsteps behind me. Fast. Purposeful. Rowena. I turn. Vanessa stands 3 feet away. Her eyes are red, her hands clenched at her sides. For the first time in years, she isn't holding her phone. I want to testify, she says. Claudia looks up. I look at my sister, searching her face for manipulation, for strategy, for performance. I find none of those things. What I see instead is someone who has just watched the ground collapse beneath the only story she ever believed about our family. I nod. 10 minutes later, Vanessa Rose takes the witness stand. My father's attorneys object immediately. The witness is a beneficiary of the contested will, one of my father's attorneys argues quickly. Her testimony is compromised. Judge Patricia Morrow barely glances up. The witness is testifying voluntarily against her own financial interest, she replies. She pauses. I'll allow it. Proceed. Vanessa grips the edge of the witness stand. She doesn't look at our parents. She looks directly at the judge. I knew the will had been changed, she says. Her voice trembles, but she keeps speaking. I didn't know exactly how it was done, but I knew Grandma would never have left Rowena with a broken house. She loved Rowena more than any of us. A quiet sound ripples through the gallery. One of my aunts presses her hand harder against her mouth. Vanessa swallows. Dad told me to stay quiet. Mom said it was for the family. I believed them because it was easier than believing I was part of something wrong. She takes a slow breath. Dad told me while Grandma was still alive. He said, when she dies, everything comes to us, not Rowena. She isn't built for it. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I accepted what I was given because that's what I was raised to do. Then, finally, she turns. Not toward our parents, toward me. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Rowena, she says quietly. I'm telling the truth because Grandma deserved it. And because you're braver than I'll ever be. The courtroom falls silent. My father's face is stiff, drained of color. My mother's chin trembles. She searches Vanessa's face, silently begging for something. But Vanessa has already turned away. My father's attorneys lean toward each other. Neither of them speaks. Judge Morrow writes a brief note. Then she looks toward the defense table. Does the respondent wish to call any witnesses? My father's lead attorney stands, pauses, then slowly sits down again. No, Your Honor. The gavel strikes once. We will proceed to ruling. Vanessa had said something on the stand. I was the favorite. But being the favorite in that family meant being the most useful accomplice. Those words hang in the air like dust after a wall has been knocked down. Judge Morrow takes 11 minutes. Then she returns to the bench. She adjusts her glasses and reads from a prepared statement. Her voice is calm, measured, and absolutely merciless. This court finds the following. First, the document filed by Samuel Pierce and presented as the last will and testament of Eleanor Whitaker is fraudulent. It is hereby declared void. Across the room, my father's attorney closes his eyes. Second, the handwritten will recovered from the Birch Hollow property, dated March 14th and properly witnessed and notarized, is recognized as the sole valid testament of the deceased. I feel Claudia's hand press gently against my forearm. Steady. Third, Victor Rose is remanded to federal custody on charges of forgery, bank fraud, and elder financial abuse. Bail will be determined at arraignment. 2 U.S. Marshals step forward. My father rises slowly. His mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Fourth, Monica Rose is remanded on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and filing a fraudulent competency petition. Bail hearing to follow. My mother gasps and clutches her chest. She turns toward me. Rowena, how could you do this to your own parents? I don't turn around. My eyes stay on the judge. Fifth, Samuel Pierce is charged with aiding and abetting the forgery of legal documents. His license to practice law is suspended immediately, pending formal disbarment proceedings. Pierce sits frozen. The color has completely drained from his face. Sixth, all assets contained within the Whitaker Family Trust are to be restored and distributed according to the valid will. Seventh, Judge Martin Kern of the Westchester Probate Court is referred to the Judicial Review Council for investigation of judicial misconduct. The gavel falls. Once. Final. The marshals move toward the defense table. Handcuffs click around my father's wrists. The sound is small, metallic, precise. For the first time since the hearing began, he looks directly at me. There's no anger left in his expression, only the hollow recognition of a man who has run out of moves. My mother is still speaking, to the marshals, to the room, to anyone who will listen. No one does. Arthur places a hand gently on my shoulder. I reach up and cover it with mine. Neither of us says anything. As we walk out of the courtroom, one thought keeps circling in my mind. My grandmother sat alone in her house, surrounded by people who were stealing from her, and instead of surrendering, she built an airtight case. She sealed it inside a wall and trusted me to find it. She couldn't fight them while she was alive, so she made sure I could fight them after she was gone. Standing on the courthouse steps, I realized something else. She knew the system would resist. She knew they would try to bury the truth. So she turned a crumbling old house into the one thing they could never hide. If you're hearing this and someone is making you question what you know is true, that isn't confusion. That's control. And you don't owe silence to people who benefit from it. What would you have done? Arthur stands beside me on the courthouse steps. The sun is low. The air carries that sharp early evening chill. He slips both hands into the pockets of his coat and looks up at the sky. She would have hated the courtroom, he says quietly. Then he smiles faintly. But she would have loved the ending. I don't feel victorious. What I feel is the weight of a truth that never should have been buried. Within 48 hours, the story spreads everywhere. Westchester County suddenly pays attention. The Register runs a follow-up article. This time, it doesn't read like a carefully planted press release. This time, the headline says, "Local businessman arrested for trust fraud. Forged will overturned in federal court." My father's statement from the courthouse steps, "We're confident the truth will come out today," appears again in the third paragraph. It reads very differently now. Monica's Facebook page goes quiet. The Christmas photo with the matching sweaters, the one asking people to pray for the family, turn quickly. You lied to everyone. You should be ashamed. By Thursday, the entire account disappears. People who avoided my eyes at the funeral suddenly call with warmth they never had before. I let most of those calls go to voicemail. Not because I'm bitter. I just don't have the energy to carry their guilt, too. Beatrice Langford calls first. And for Beatrice, I answer. She almost never cries, but today she does. Eleanor would be so proud of you, sweetheart, she says softly. So proud. Over the following weeks, Claudia Bennett updates me as the sentencing unfolds. Victor accepts a plea agreement, 8 years in federal prison. Monica receives 4 years. Samuel Pierce gets 3, along with permanent disbarment. Judge Kern resigns from the bench before the judicial review finishes its investigation. The Westchester Country Club revokes his membership. A small detail, but one my grandmother would have quietly appreciated. Vanessa calls once. She doesn't ask for anything. I'm moving out of Mom and Dad's place, she says. I'm selling the Scarsdale house, the one that was supposed to be yours. The money goes back to you. I close my eyes for a moment. Keep enough to start over, I tell her. That's what Grandma would want. There's a long pause. I don't deserve forgiveness yet, she says finally. But I want to someday. I don't tell her she's forgiven. That wouldn't be honest. Instead, I say the only true thing I can. Then start there. She hangs up. I set the phone down and look around the Birch Hollow house, half new, half old. Walls rising where old ones once collapsed. Patrick's crew is sanding the new staircase railing. The house is slowly becoming what it was always meant to be. So am I. Arthur invites me to visit his apartment in Stamford, a small third-floor place near the harbor. Modest, clean, quiet. But when I walk inside, I stop cold. The walls are covered in photographs. Not framed neatly, just pinned and taped across the plaster in layers. My grandmother as a toddler, black and white. Eleanor at 18 laughing outside a diner. Eleanor at 40, the year she found him again, standing in a park with her eyes closed, sunlight across her face. And then, me. My high school play. I'm barely visible behind a prop fence, playing a background tree. But there I am, and there was his camera. My college graduation, the photo taken from across the street through a crowd, slightly blurry, but unmistakably me. My first day at the nonprofit, carrying a box through the front door, smiling at someone off camera. He was there. Every time. Eleanor sent me the close-up photos. Arthur says gently, setting 2 mugs of coffee on the counter. I kept the distant ones to remind myself to be patient. I pick up the photograph of my grandmother in the park. She found you, I say. She found you, and never told anyone. Arthur sits near the window. She told Beatrice, he says. And she told the walls of that house. Then he adds softly, she trusted things more than people. Paper, metal, brick. Things don't lie. We sit quietly for a while, not the uncomfortable kind of silence, the kind that comes when 2 people realize they've been searching for the same thing their entire lives and finally found it. I'm in my early 90s, Arthur says after a while. I don't know how many years I've got left. But whatever time I do have, he looks at me. It's yours. I set my mug down. When the Birch Hollow house is finished, I say, come live there. He looks at me, eyes filling. Eleanor always said that house would be full again someday. I reach into my bag and take out the small wooden box Beatrice gave me. I set it on the table. She left you something too. Arthur opens it. Inside, beneath the photograph labeled M&M 1974, there's another folded piece of paper. He reads it silently. His hand trembles slightly. He doesn't tell me what it says. I don't ask. But when he looks up, something in his face has changed. Something quiet has settled there, like a door closing softly after being open for years. I wrote 28 letters, he says. One for every birthday I missed. He walks to the closet and brings back an old shoebox. Inside are 28 envelopes, each sealed, each dated. I take the box and hold it against my chest. Outside, the harbor reflects the fading light. Inside, the photographs keep the walls standing. Monica's letter arrives 3 weeks later. Handwritten, 3 pages. The envelope smells like the gardenia perfume she's worn for 30 years. I open it at the kitchen table in Birch Hollow. Morning light spilling through the new windows. She writes, Rowena, I know you won't believe this, but I did what I did because I was afraid. She writes about living under Victor's control for decades, about money, decisions, lawyers. She says she followed him because she didn't see another way. She writes about her childhood, about learning that silence was survival, about how survival slowly turned into habit, and habit turned into identity. She writes that she loved my grandmother, but she was afraid of the way Eleanor looked at her. She saw exactly who I was, she writes, and I couldn't stand it. The final page is an apology, and this time, whether it's too late or not, it sounds like a real one. I'm sorry I used your therapy against you. I'm sorry I signed that petition. I'm sorry for the Facebook post, for the Christmas photo, and for the way I said your name at the courthouse. I'm sorry for everything I convinced myself was love, but wasn't. I read the letter twice. Then I set it down. Some of it I believe. Monica probably was afraid of Victor. That part is likely true. But Monica also designed the emotional architecture of nearly every manipulation in this story. She chose who to call. She chose what to post. She chose to weaponize the trust I gave her. Fear may explain those choices. It doesn't excuse them. I write back, just 1 page. Mom, I read your letter. I believe that you were afraid. But fear doesn't justify what you did to Grandma or to me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm simply finished. I wish you well, but we won't have a relationship going forward. That boundary is permanent. I forgive myself for waiting this long to walk away. I don't owe you anything beyond that. I seal the envelope, address it to the federal facility in Danbury. Then I walk to the mailbox at the end of Birch Hollow Road and slide it inside. I don't wait for a reply. On my way back, Patrick O'Connor is standing on the porch. He's installing the last section of the railing, cedar, hand-sanded, stained to match the original wood. He glances up and nods. Looking good, boss. I smile. Small, but real. The first smile in a long time that didn't cost me anything. The trees along Birch Hollow are starting to turn. Orange at the edges, gold beneath. The kind of beauty that only appears after something decides to let go. 6 months after the trial, the house at 14 Birch Hollow Road is finished. New white oak hardwood floors, the same species used here in 1948. Fresh plaster walls, windows that open easily instead of fighting back, a kitchen with a gas stove, ceramic tile backsplash, and a hook by the door where Grandma's old guest book now hangs. Blank pages waiting. Patrick's crew works the last day in quiet concentration, the way people do when they know they've built something that matters. Patrick himself installs the final baseboard in the living room. the same room where the false wall once stood. He runs a hand along the finished wood, then stands and brushes dust from his knees. 22 years in construction, he says. This one I'll remember. That afternoon, I hang the photographs. First, the original. My grandmother Eleanor, young, holding a baby, standing proudly in front of this house when it was still whole and white. I place it exactly where the false wall used to be. Next to it, the 1974 photo. Eminem, Eleanor, and Michael standing arm in arm before life pulled them apart. Beside that, a new picture taken last week. Arthur and me on the finished porch. Patrick behind us with both hands on our shoulders, laughing at something someone said off camera. Arthur moves in on a Saturday. He brings one suitcase and the shoebox of letters. He takes the downstairs bedroom, the one facing the garden my grandmother planted decades ago. The rose bushes had been cut back. Now they're already blooming again. His first morning, I find him sitting on the porch, coffee in his hand, in the exact chair where Eleanor used to sit. He says nothing, just watches the yard. The silence feels comfortable, complete. That afternoon, Claudia Bennett calls with the final legal updates. Victor, 8 years in federal prison. Monica, 4 years, with eligibility for supervised release after 2. Samuel Pierce, 3 years and permanent disbarment. Forced resignation. Pension under review. The trust is fully restored. The Scarsdale house sale closes next month. Vanessa kept enough to rent a small studio in New Haven and enroll in a counseling program. The rest of the money was returned. Total recovered, just over $1.9 million. I don't stare at the number long. The money was never the point. The point was the truth. And the truth is sitting on my porch drinking coffee while the rose bushes grow. Told you the house was worth saving, Patrick says as he heads toward his truck with his toolbox. Just needed someone who cared enough. I stand in the doorway and watch him drive away. Behind me, the house is warm, quiet, full of light. 1 year later, I stand on a freshly poured sidewalk beside the lot next to Birch Hollow. In front of me is a renovated farmhouse. Above the entrance hangs a wooden sign. Eleanor Whitfield Community Center. The building used to be an old storage barn. Patrick's crew gutted it and rebuilt everything. Now it's alive. 3 counseling rooms, a small legal aid office, a meeting hall with folding chairs, and a donated coffee machine that only works half the time. The mission is simple: free legal support for people facing financial abuse inside their own families. Support groups for adults rebuilding their lives after estrangement. Mentorship for young women learning to navigate systems that were never built for them. I didn't build this to prove anything. I built it because I know what it feels like to hold the truth in your hands while no one is willing to listen. The opening ceremony is small, about 60 people, neighbors, former co-workers, a few clients from my old nonprofit. Patrick and 2 of his crew stand in the back with their arms crossed, blinking suspiciously. Beatrice cuts the ribbon. Her hands shake. She laughs about it. Eleanor would have done this faster, she says. The crowd laughs with her. Claudia stands quietly near the doorway. She catches my eye and gives a small nod, the kind that says, "This was worth it." Arthur stands beside me. He doesn't speak during the ceremony. He doesn't have to. When I step up to the small podium, he places one hand on the back of my chair, the way a father does at a graduation. I keep my speech short. My grandmother hid the truth inside a wall because she didn't have a safe place to say it out loud, I tell the crowd. This center exists so no one ever has to hide the truth again. It isn't about revenge. It's about making sure the truth always has somewhere to stand. After the ceremony, I notice something. A small bouquet of white roses sitting beside the entrance. No card. But I know who sent them. Vanessa. I leave the flowers exactly where they are, right at the threshold. Not quite inside. Not yet. But present. Arthur stays outside long after everyone else has gone inside for coffee. He stands in front of the wooden sign, reading the name Eleanor Whitfield. Slowly, he reaches up and touches the letters with his fingertips. He doesn't say a word. Some things don't need words. They just need a place to exist. That evening, after the last guest leaves and the coffee machine finally gives up for the day, I sit on the porch at 14 Birch Hollow Road. Arthur sits beside me, 2 mugs of decaf between us. The sky is turning amber and indigo at the edges, and somewhere in the yard, the first fireflies of the season are flickering to life. She would have loved this, Arthur says quietly. She planned it, I reply. We just showed up. He chuckles softly, a tired, gentle sound. The sound of a man who waited 70 years to sit on this porch. I glance down at my wrist. The silver bracelet catches the last sliver of daylight. Thin, tarnished, ordinary. If you didn't know what was engraved inside, you'd never notice anything special about it. Monica once called it costume jewelry. She wasn't entirely wrong. It was a costume, a disguise. For 40 years it carried a secret in plain sight. The bracelet held a code. The code opened a box. The box revealed the truth. And the truth held me up when nothing else could. The story I shared isn't really about winning a court case or reclaiming money. It's about something deeper. The courage to trust what you know is true, even when the people closest to you try to rewrite your reality. For a long time, I believed family meant loyalty at any cost, silence for the sake of peace, and accepting whatever role I was given. But the truth taught me something different. Real family is not defined by blood or shared names. It's defined by the people who stand beside you when standing beside you is difficult. Sometimes the hardest step is not fighting others. It's giving yourself permission to walk away from what is hurting you. Boundaries are not cruelty. Truth is not betrayal. And choosing dignity is not selfish. If this story leaves you with anything, let it be this. When you hold the truth with steady hands, it will carry you farther than fear ever could. If this story touched you, even in a small way, I'd really appreciate your support. Please take a moment to like the video, because it helps this story reach people who may need to hear it. If you've ever faced something similar, family conflict, betrayal, or the courage it takes to stand up for the truth, your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if you believe more people should hear stories about resilience, truth, and finding strength in difficult moments, please share this video with someone who might need it. There are many more powerful journeys ahead. Thank you for listening until the very end.